We don't salute trash like you. The words came sharp, loud enough to turn heads, cruel enough to stop time. The officer saying it, white mid-40s, polished badge, clean uniform, stood tall with his hand resting on his belt, just brushing the grip of his sidearm. Spit still glistened on his lips. Just seconds after landing it on the man's shoes, morning sunlight hit the sidewalk in front of the 21st precinct. A line of cops gathered by the patrol cars, sipping bad coffee, trading lazy jokes. Civilians walked past without a glance, used to the noise of uniforms and radios and the city waking up. But this stopped everyone. The man he'd spat on stood still. Jet black dress boots, creased navy trousers, silver badge clipped but turned inward. A subtle shine caught the edges of his rank. But it was the silence around him that stood out more. The kind of silence that made even car horns seem far off. Like the street itself was holding its breath. He didn't wipe the spit. Didn't flinch. Didn't even look angry. Just watched the officer. The way someone might study a broken clock ticking in reverse. Another cop shifted uncomfortably. Hey, Carson, maybe chill? But Officer Carson was deep into the performance. Loud enough for nearby civilians to hear, eyes gleaming with authority warped by something uglier. You think that fancy suit makes you somebody? Out here, respect is earned, not bought with medals, boy. That last word twisted the air. The man finally blinked, slow. Not from offense, more like calculation. The security guard by the door glanced down at the clipboard in his hand, his pen trembling slightly. Officer Carson, maybe you wanna Carson cut him off. Nah. Let me guess, he's here to make some complaint. Another soft-skinned whiner. You think your color gives you a pass? Think you can just walk in here and get special treatment? A child holding her mother's hand across the street whispered, Mama, why's that man being so mean? The mother gently turned her daughter away. A beat passed. Then the black man finally spoke, calm, sharp. I'm not here to be saluted. His voice wasn't raised, but it had weight like stone dropping into a still lake. Officer Carson smirked. Good. Then walk your ass off my precinct steps before I have you cuffed for obstruction. The man took out a leather folder, opened it, held it up, angled toward the sunlight so the gold crust inside glowed in full view. I'm your new chief. No one moved. Even the birds seemed to pause. Carson blinked, first in confusion, then horror. A twitch in his cheek. His lips parted like he wanted to speak, but nothing came out. One of the rookies at the side dropped their coffee. The splash hit the pavement loud. The man, Chief Elijah Ward, let the silence stretch. Then he took one small step forward. Carson stumbled backward, his boots scraping clumsily. You've said enough, Chief Ward said. Now it's my turn to speak. He looked around. Every officer's gaze had shifted, some in shock, some in shame, others in awe. And one camera held by a bystander who'd been recording the whole thing kept filming, the red light blinking steady like a pulse. Ward crouched, took out a white handkerchief, wiped the spit slowly from his shoe, folded the cloth back with precision. When he stood again, he stared directly into Carson's eyes, calm, controlled, deadly with restraint. You didn't fail because of your hate, Ward said. You failed because you assumed I was beneath you. Carson's mouth opened. Still no words. And now, Chief Ward added, you answer to me. He walked past him, into the precinct. Doors opened without resistance. The crowd outside didn't cheer, didn't speak. But the silence was different now. It was respect. And Carson? He stood frozen, badge gleaming, boots planted. But everything about him had already crumbled. The reckoning had just begun. The doors shut behind him with a hydraulic hiss. Chief Ward didn't slow his stride. His boots tapped a steady rhythm against the linoleum. Every step echoed down the Narrow hall of framed service awards and dusty flag displays. Officers inside the lobby had already heard what happened outside. Phones buzzed. Eyes followed. Nobody spoke. He passed a front desk sergeant, an older man with red knuckles and wary eyes. "Sir," the sergeant said, standing halfway out of reflex, halfway out of fear. Ward nodded once. "Sergeant Hawley, you need an escort upstairs?" "No," Ward said. "I know my way." Up the staircase, wallpaper peeling. Old precinct mottos faded. Honor, duty, brotherhood. The kind of brotherhood that never included men. Who looked like him. Ward didn't stop. He entered the squad room. Conversation died. 6 officers paused mid-report. One woman halfway through hanging up a call. A detective with a half-eaten sandwich froze, lettuce falling back into the wrapper. Ward's voice cut the air like a scalpel. Roll call in the main room. 10 minutes. No excuses. Someone muttered, "What the hell?" He turned to the man. "You'll want to be there, Officer Jenner." The man swallowed hard. Yes, Chief." Ward's office was at the end of the hallway. The door was open, his name already on the frosted glass. The previous chief, Marcus Doyle, had retired suddenly 2 weeks earlier. No farewell party. No plaque. Just a vacancy. And now Ward filled it. He stepped inside, closed the door, and stood still for a moment. A breath. The room smelled like old leather and sour coffee. File cabinets against one wall. A dusty flag in the corner. The desk, neat but impersonal. Nothing of him here yet. Ward walked over to the window. Outside, Carson was no longer on the Fadvona steps, but his stain lingered. 10 minutes later, every officer had assembled. Over 50 of them, some with crossed arms, some pretending not to be afraid, some silently hoping the rumors weren't true. Chief Ward stood at the front. No podium. No speech, just presence. "You don't know me yet," he said, "but you will." He let the pause hang. "I've served this country for 24 years. I've worn the uniform longer than most of you have held a badge. I've buried friends who bled on foreign soil so we could all stand under one flag. And I've watched this city rot because good men stayed quiet while bad ones made noise." A few exchanged glances. One officer stared down at his shoes. "I'm not here to make friends," Ward continued. "I'm here to clean this house." He lifted a folder from under his arm. "Starting today, we're opening internal conduct reviews, including one regarding the incident that took place less than an hour ago." He didn't say Carson's name, but everyone knew. "Those who serve with honor will have my full backing. Those who wear this badge like a shield for hate... will not last." Someone shifted uncomfortably. Another officer cleared her throat. A voice from the back muttered, "Affirmative action." Ward's head turned instantly. "You want to repeat that?" Silence. "I didn't think so." He placed the folder on the table. "This isn't revenge." Ward said, "It's responsibility." He looked across the room. Eye to eye. Not challenging, but weighing. "And if that makes some of you nervous, it's not because I'm wrong. It's because I'm right." The words cut clean. No theatrics. Just truth wrapped in iron. A quiet fell over the room. Different from earlier. Heavier. Sharper. The kind of silence that meant, "He's serious." Chief Ward nodded once and turned to leave, then paused. "By the way," he added without turning back, "if any of you are still confused about who I am." He looked over his shoulder. "I'm the one you'll be answering to when your lies catch up." He walked out, and behind him, the old world started cracking. The office smelled like sweat and scotch. Marcus Doyle, former chief, now retired, leaned back in a creaking leather chair, tie undone, eyes bloodshot. His walls were bare now. Number. Plaques, no commendations. Just peeling corners where certificates used to hang. A single ceiling fan spun lazily above them, doing nothing for the heat. Officer Carson stood in the doorway, jaw locked, fists clenched. Doyle didn't need to look up. "You embarrassed the department today, Carson." Carson took a step forward. "I thought he was hell. I didn't know." Doyle let out a dry laugh. "Didn't care" is more accurate. Carson's lips pressed into a line. "He's going to tear us apart. You know that, right?" "Good," Doyle muttered, sipping from a glass. "About time someone did." That made Carson pause. He looked around the stripped office. "You said we'd be protected. You said this place ran on loyalty." Doyle's eyes snapped to his. "It ran on silence," he said coldly. "And now that's over." Carson's voice dropped. "He's already started digging." Doyle swirled the glass. Ice clinked. "Of course he has, because we left bones everywhere. He's gonna find the files. He already has." Carson stepped forward again. "Then do something. Talk to your buddies on the council. Get him reassigned. Say he's unstable. That he's—" Doyle cut him off with a single look. "You don't get it. You think this is still your house. It's not. And even if I tried, that man's record is cleaner than snow." Carson's chest rose and fell. "Then we're screwed." Doyle looked away. "I saw it coming years ago," he said quietly. "Someone like him would rise eventually. The problem wasn't him. It was always us." Carson's mouth twisted. "So what? We roll over? Let him fire us one by one?" "No," Doyle said, voice darkening. "You do what men like you always do. You start getting desperate. You make mistakes." He stood, slowly, wobbly on his legs, and that's when he buries you. Downstairs, Chief Ward sat in his office, alone. The lights were dimmed. The only thing glowing was the laptop screen and the digitized audio files playing one by one. Recorded interviews, complaints, reviews that had been marked unsubstantiated without real investigation. Dozens of them. He clicked play on another. "Officer Carson detained me for walking in my neighborhood. I showed ID 3 times. He said I looked like someone from a case file. Click. I filed this last month. Officer Griggs said if I kept coming to roll call with my hair like that, I wouldn't get backup if something went wrong. Click. The sound of someone crying softly. Then silence. Ward's hand hovered over the mouse. He didn't move. The room felt colder than it should. He stood and walked to the small window overlooking the back lot. Patrol cars gleamed in the floodlights. Somewhere out there, some of the same officers were preparing for another night, pretending none of it mattered. His fingers curled against the glass. He wouldn't just remove a few bad apples. He'd uproot the entire orchard. In the squad room. Carson slammed his locker shut and stormed out. Other officers avoided eye contact. They had seen the video. They had heard the rumors. They weren't getting involved. But Carson wasn't done. Not by a long shot. Chief Ward returned to his desk and opened the bottom drawer. Inside was a sealed envelope left for him by an anonymous source the day before he took office. It had one line of handwriting on the front. "You'll need this when they start hiding the real crimes." He hadn't opened it until now. The contents were simple. A flash drive. A printed photo of an officer with blood on his hands. And a list of names. Ward's eyes narrowed. One of the names had a red circle around it. Carson. Back in the locker room. Carson paused in front of the mirror. His reflection didn't look like a cop anymore. It looked like a man cornered. And cornered men? They start fires. The first to fold was Officer Griggs, not because he broke under pressure, but because he didn't see the pressure coming. Chief Ward had called him in quietly behind closed doors. No spectacle, no warnings, just a calm request. "Sit." Griggs looked uneasy. He wasn't the loud one. He kept his racism neat, professional, documented with eye rolls, coded sarcasm, and paperwork that mysteriously always went missing when it mattered most. I reviewed your reports, Ward said. 3 years. Not a single arrest that didn't involve a black or Latino subject. 0 community commendations. 8 complaints, all unsubstantiated. Griggs shrugged. I go where the crime is. Ward held up a printed form. Then, why did you report a man for suspicious loitering? Outside his own garage? No answer. Ward didn't blink. You told him, quote, your type's always casing something. He was a retired Navy SEAL, cleaning his tools. Griggs shifted. Look, maybe I was on edge. No, Ward said, rising. You were comfortable. He leaned forward, hands flat on the desk. But I'm not here to debate your excuses. I'm here to offer you a choice. Griggs frowned. What choice? Ward slid a file toward him. Step down. Resign, quietly, or I open a formal misconduct hearing, and trust me, when I open doors, I open all of them. Griggs's eyes flicked to the folder, then to Ward's face. He didn't speak, but 10 minutes later, the locker room door slammed, and one badge clattered into a cardboard box upstairs. Carson was on the phone. He's bluffing, he growled into the receiver. He doesn't have half the dirt he's pretending to. The voice on the other end was calm. Too calm. Then why are people resigning? Carson wiped his forehead. He's scaring them. That's all. He's using rumors and threats. Or he's just better than you expected. Carson froze. Wait, whose side are you on? The line went dead. He cursed and threw the phone onto the desk. Things were spiraling. He'd tried pulling favors with the city board, no help. He'd tried digging into Ward's past, no dirt. Even Ward's military record was squeaky clean. Too clean. That's when it hit him. No. Man survives 2 decades in the system without making enemies, unless those enemies never made it out alive. Meanwhile, Ward met with internal affairs. 4 resignations this week, the EA officer noted. Your approach is aggressive. It's necessary. Maybe, but it's making waves downtown. Ward stared at him. Good. That means they can hear me coming. The EA man paused, then slid something across the table. A photo. A woman. African American. Late 30s, uniformed. Bruises on her neck. Eyes hollow. Detective Alyssa Kane, he said. Transferred out 5 years ago. Used to be one of the best. Until the harassment broke her. Ward studied the photo. She filed a complaint? More than one. They vanished. Let me guess Carson was her supervisor. The man nodded. Ward's jaw clenched. Find her. I want her statement. She left the city. Then get me an address. She deserves to see this precinct burn clean. That night, Ward returned to his office alone. The halls were quiet, but tension still vibrated through the air like static. Before a storm, he opened the envelope again, stared at the names. 7 were already gone. Only 3 remained. He pulled out a red pen and circled. Another one. Griggs, 2 left, and Carson was next, across town. In a dim dive bar where off-duty cops whispered louder than they should, Carson nursed his drink. A man in a worn blazer sat beside him. I hear you're losing ground, the man said casually. Carson scoffed. You here to gloat or help? Depends. On? How? Much you're willing to bury him. Carson glanced sideways. You got something? The man pulled out a flash drive. Everything the city tried to hide. Military op gone wrong. Civilian casualties. Ward was there. Carson reached for it. The man yanked it back. Be sure, Carson. Once you pull this thread, it doesn't stop at him. Carson hesitated. Then, nodded. He took the flash drive, slipped it into his coat. But back at the precinct, Chief Ward sat watching something else entirely. A private message from a burner address. It had only one line. He's coming for you with a lie. You better be ready with the truth. Ward leaned back in his chair. He was, because this fire, Carson didn't realize. He wasn't the one who started it. He was just the next one to get burned. News broke before sunrise. Breaking. Newly appointed Black police chief linked to civilian deaths in war zone operation. It was the kind of headline that made phones ring and stomachs drop. Within 30 minutes, precinct chatter exploded. Half the department acted like it was gospel. The other half stayed quiet, watching Ward's door. Carson smiled bitterly in the locker room. Won't be long now. He had waited for this moment. It wasn't justice. It wasn't even strategy. It was vengeance dressed up like concern. But in Chief Ward's office, the storm didn't hit the way Carson had hoped. Ward sat calm, reading the article on his screen. Every word smelled of desperation, skewed facts, exaggerated death counts, a grain of truth buried under mountains of fiction. He closed the browser and picked up his cell, dialed a number he hadn't used in years. When the voice answered, it cracked with time and pain. "Elijah," he said quietly, "I need to see you." 2 hours later, Ward drove past the city limits. No security escort. No headlines. Just a borrowed car and silence on the road. He reached a modest house near the edge of a dried-out riverbed. Weeds framed the steps. Curtains stayed closed. She opened the door before he knocked. Detective Alyssa Kane. 5 years older, hair shorter, smile gone, but her eyes still sharp. "You brought the storm with you," she said. Ward nodded. "And I'm here to end it." They sat at her table. No coffee. Just quiet. "I saw the news," she said finally. "They're trying to smear you. They're trying to survive me." Alyssa studied his face. "Why come here?" "Because you're the one they tried to erase. Because your file's gone, your name's scrubbed, and they still whisper your story like a ghost tale." He slid a document across the table. "I need your testimony, officially." Her hand shook as she touched it. "They'll come after me," she whispered. "They already did," Ward said. "Now let them come after me." Alyssa exhaled slowly. "You always did wear the fire well." She signed it. Back in the city, Carson was basking in the fallout. He watched the news stations re-air the headlines every 15 minutes. Blogs took the bait. Message boards exploded, but what he didn't see coming was her, a woman white. Mid-50s, clean blazer, somber expression appeared on national TV later that evening. Her voice was steady. "My son died during that operation," she said. "He was caught in the crossfire." Carson leaned forward on his couch, grinning. Then she added, "But I reviewed the files. Chief Elijah Ward did everything to save him. It was another squad that made the call. Ward testified against them. He was the only one who told the truth." Carson's smile faded. She wasn't condemning Ward. She was defending him. She looked into the camera and said, "They tried to make him the villain because he was the only man in that room with a conscience." The news anchor blinked. "Why? Come forward now?" "Because it's not enough to know someone's innocent. You have to say it when the world starts to forget." The precinct shook. Officers began whispering different stories. Now old files that were missing started showing up again. Anonymous tips arrived in the chief's inbox. And Carson? He felt it slipping. He returned to the dive bar. Met with the same man who gave him the flash drive. "You didn't tell me the whole story." Carson snapped out. The man sipped his drink. "You didn't ask the right questions. You used me." "No," the man said, standing. "You used you. I just held up a mirror." That night, Chief Ward stood in his office window, watching the lights of the city blink like slow heartbeats. Alyssa's signed statement sat on his desk. along with 5 other files, more witnesses coming forward. The old regime was cracking faster than even he expected. But he didn't smile. He knew this wasn't the end. This was the pause before the real attack. Because men like Carson don't go quietly. They go down swinging. Even if the first bullet isn't made of lead. It's made of fear. The room was packed. Not with uniforms. With civilians, mothers, veterans, teachers, shop owners, men who'd been wrongly arrested, women who'd filed ignored complaints, kids who had been stopped and frisked on their own doorsteps. Chief Ward stood at the front, suit crisp, jaw tight. "I called this town hall for one reason," he said. "This precinct doesn't just protect this community. It belongs to it." Some scoffed. Others folded arms. He raised a folder. "This is a list of every unresolved civilian complaint filed over the past 5 years. Tonight we start reading them out loud." The silence was brutal. Then a voice from the back spoke. "A woman with gray hair and tired eyes. You think saying it out loud fixes it?" "No," Ward replied. "But pretending it didn't happen is how we got here." She stared at him a beat. Longer. Then nodded once. "Then start reading." He did, one by one, case by case. He read the names of officers who harassed instead of helped. The children searched without cause. The homes entered without warrants. Each story like a stone dropped into the room's breathless silence. By the 3rd file, someone in the back began to cry. By the 7th, a young officer in uniform quietly walked out, his face pale. By the 10th, no one was breathing normally anymore. It wasn't rage in the room. It was release. Truth had a sound. It didn't shout. It bled. Upstairs, Carson paced the hallway like a man on borrowed time. He'd tried talking to the union. No support. He'd tried rallying other officers. Too afraid. Even Doyle, the retired chief, wouldn't return his calls. The walls were folding in. He saw Ward walking up the stairwell after the meeting. They locked eyes. Ward didn't blink. "You're losing them," Carson hissed. "I never needed them," Ward said. "I needed the truth." Carson stepped closer, close enough to smell the cheap cologne. "You think this makes you a hero? You humiliated me in front of the city, in front of my own people. You humiliated yourself." Ward said coldly, "I just turned the lights on." The next day, Officer Reynolds, a tall, broad-shouldered man with a southern accent, walked into Ward's office. He shut the door behind him. "I was one of them," he said. "I laughed at the jokes, turned away when Carson crossed lines, said nothing when Griggs wrote fake reports." Ward looked up. "Why now?" "Because last night my kid asked me what kind of cop I am." Ward leaned back, and Reynolds added, "And I didn't have an answer I could say out loud." He placed his badge on the desk. "I'm not quitting. I'm cleaning." "You point, I'll dig." Ward didn't smile, but he stood up, shook his hand, not as a boss, but as a man recognizing another ready to stop hiding. Carson, watching from the corner stairwell, nearly crushed the railing with his grip. He felt it now, not just heat. Collapse. The brotherhood he once boasted about wasn't loyalty. It was cowardice stacked on fear, and it was falling apart. That night, the tipping point came. The precinct's internal server went offline. Security logs, corrupted. Files gone. Ward arrived within 15 minutes of the alert. IT said it looked intentional. Someone with access. Someone trying to erase the sins before they could be punished. Ward's jaw tightened. He already knew who. In the camera room, they pulled the last clear image before the blackout. It was Carson, walking toward the server room. Alone. In uniform. Smiling. Ward sat alone in his office, fists balled on the desk. He whispered to no one, "You called it brotherhood?" He looked at the broken monitor. "We called it survival." He picked up the phone. "Get me internal affairs. Full sweep. Tonight. Because Carson had crossed the final line, not just betrayal, sabotage, and next time, there would be no badge. Left to hide behind. Two internal affairs agents arrived before sunrise. Black suits. Clean cut, no nonsense. They entered the precinct through the back, quiet but unmistakable. No salute, no smile. Just mission. Chief Ward met them on the second floor. Room secure, he said. Evidence is logged. Carson knew what he was doing. The lead agent nodded. We've seen enough. Your authorization for full review is confirmed. We'll extract him quietly. Ward looked through the glass window where Carson sat laughing with two rookies, pretending nothing was unraveling. He won't go quietly, Ward said. He still thinks he's untouchable. The agent raised a brow. Then let's remind him. They approached Carson in the squad room. Officer Carson, the taller agent said. Carson turned mid-sip of coffee. Yeah, you need to come with us. For what? The other agent held up a warrant. Criminal sabotage, evidence tampering, abuse of authority. Silence. The rookies next to Carson froze, half standing, unsure if it was a joke. Carson stood slowly. You've got nothing, he muttered. Ward's voice echoed from behind him. No, Carson. You had nothing, no honor, no respect, and now no more power. Carson turned, rage on his face. You think this place wants you? You think they'll stand behind some woke cleanup act? These men, these are my brothers, he gestured. At the room, but no one moved, not a word, not a glance. One officer, Detective Montero, closed his locker and walked out without a word. Another turned away. Slowly removing his own name tag and placing it in his pocket, like he didn't want to wear the same uniform anymore. Carson saw it all. And cracked. You cowards, he shouted. You're just going to stand there while he destroys everything? Ward stepped forward, slow and steady. I'm not destroying anything, he said. I'm rebuilding what should have been here all along. Carson pointed a shaking hand. This is a witch hunt, no? Ward said. This is justice, and you brought it on yourself. Within hours, the footage spread. The meltdown. The accusations. The final arrest. Someone had filmed a vertical phone video, shaky, raw, real. Millions watched as Carson was cuffed, screaming, I built this house. While Ward stood calm in the background, arms crossed, eyes unflinching. Caption under most reposts? Not anymore. By evening, the city was ablaze with Confrontation. News anchors debated corruption in precincts. Community leaders praised Ward's courage. Former victims of abuse stepped forward. One after another, their faces now framed by something rare. Hope. And inside the precinct, everything shifted. The silence that had once hidden rot now became the silence of rebuilding. Papers were refiled. Cases reopened. Training protocols revised. It wasn't perfection, but it was motion. For the first time in years, the building breathed different air. In the break room, Officer Jamal Young, wide-eyed, barely a year on the force, approached Ward. Sir? Ward looked up from his report. Thank you, Jamal said. Not just for what you did, but for staying. Ward studied him. I didn't come here to run, he said. Jamal nodded. Still, you had every reason to leave us behind. Ward stood. You don't fix a fire by walking away from it, he said. You fix it by walking straight into the heat. Late that night, Ward walked the empty hallway alone. He passed the same bulletin board where Carson's commendations once hung. Now, it was blank. The wall didn't miss them. Neither did the city. And for the first time since taking this office, he smiled. Just a little, because the badge? It never meant power. It was supposed to mean trust, and no lie could shield that. Forever. The mayor's office issued the order before noon. Effective immediately, an external audit will be conducted on the 21st Precinct. All officers and staff are subject to review. The words hit like a hammer. No room to dodge. No space to hide. A camera crew showed up by 3 p.m. Reporters stood outside the precinct gate, narrating in hushed tones while broadcasting live to the city. But inside? Inside was still no panic. No chaos. Just motion. Because under Chief Ward, this place had stopped reacting in fear. Now it moved with purpose. Ward stood in the conference room with 6 officers, some young, some gray-haired. All tired of pretending. This is a checkpoint, he told them. You either grow or get out of the way. Officer Reynolds, the one who had stayed, nodded. We're with you, sir. Ward's eyes passed over each of them. I'm not asking for perfection, he said. I'm asking for accountability. The kind we never got taught. Detective Montero raised a hand. Sir, there's something you need to see. She slid a file forward. Faded. Nearly shredded from age. Found it in a mislabeled cabinet in the basement, she said. Carson had it buried under parking citations. Ward opened the folder and froze. Inside were photos, blurry, time-stamped. A young black teen, hands behind his back. Blood at his temple. A name, Leon Dorsey. A date, 6 years ago. The charges, resisting arrest. The outcome, coma. The officer on scene, Carson. But the report was unsigned. No medical records. No follow-up. No family testimony. Covered up. Hidden. Buried. Ward's jaw clenched. He turned the page and found a handwritten note in the corner. Didn't happen. Keep it that way. That evening, Ward visited a small apartment on the city's south side. He knocked 3 times. The woman who opened the door had grief carved into every line of her face. Mrs. Dorsey? He asked gently. She nodded, cautious. I'm Elijah. Ward, Chief of the 21st Precinct. Her mouth parted. I think we need to talk about your son. Her hand flew to her lips. No one said his name in years, she whispered. Then we're starting there, Ward said softly. Back at the precinct. The mood shifted again. Officers whispered about the file. About Leon. About how Carson hadn't just bent the law he'd erased. People from it. One sergeant turned in his badge before the auditors even arrived. A detective requested reassignment, citing moral failure. And a rookie one who'd once laughed at Carson's jokes volunteered for community outreach. Ward watched it all unfold. Quietly. But he didn't celebrate, because this wasn't victory. It was repair, and repair wasn't loud. It was relentless. Next morning, a city councilwoman arrived unannounced. She walked past the reporters, through the front doors, straight into Ward's office. I wanted to see it with my own eyes, she said. See what? That you're still here. Still standing. Still human. Ward looked at her. You expected something else? She smiled. No, just wanted to make sure you hadn't turned to stone like the rest of us. She dropped a sealed envelope on his desk. What is it? A directive. If this audit succeeds, the mayor's offering you full authority to reform all West Side precincts. Ward blinked. Why me? Because you proved something. What's that? She turned at the door. That justice doesn't have to yell. She paused. It just has to not stop. That night, Ward stood in the locker room. He looked at the row of hooks, some empty now, some still warm with life trying to restart. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out the photo of Leon Dorsey, taped it to the wall above the badge board. Underneath it, he wrote one word, unforgotten. Then stepped back and let it speak for itself. The hallway lights flickered in the early morning haze. Stacks of papers, fresh paint peeling at the corners. Desks still half covered in tape from names that no longer belonged there. the 21st. Precinct didn't look like a war zone, but it felt like one. After the dust, dozens of suspensions, 12 resignations, 4 criminal referrals, and one name that no one dared say out loud anymore. Carson. Ward sat alone in the main conference room. No suit today. Just the soft navy of his service blues and a folder on the table. Inside it, every name he'd crossed out. Not with rage. Not with revenge. Just with resolution. At noon, the precinct held its first mandatory full crew meeting since the investigation ended. Officers lined the walls, some in uniform, some in plainclothes. Ia had left. Cameras were gone. No press. No speeches. Just Ward. He walked to the front. No microphone. No script. Look around, he said quietly. They did. You see these empty desks? These lockers with no names? They nodded slowly. They weren't taken. They were abandoned. He took a breath. Some of you feared I came here to burn this house down. But I didn't. I came to build a home. A beat of silence for everyone. Voice cracked near the middle of the room. What if we don't deserve it? Ward looked at the young woman who had spoken, Officer Lisette Ramos. He nodded once, then earn it now. She straightened, as if those words had filled her with spine. Ward continued. Every badge here? It used to mean fear to someone. Now it needs to mean safety. That doesn't happen in courtrooms or interviews. It happens in how you walk your street, how you stop a car, how you look at a man who doesn't look like you and still see your brother. Someone swallowed hard. A few lowered their heads. Ward's voice dropped softer. This isn't the end. This is the floor. You want to climb? Start here. He turned and walked away, but every step felt like a door swinging open behind him. Later that day, a knock came at his office. A cadet barely old enough to shave stood nervously in the doorway. Sir? Ward looked up. The young man stepped inside, eyes wide. I just graduated. I was told to report here for observation. Ward nodded. Name? Jordan Ellis. Ward gestured to the chair across from him. Sit. Jordan did, clutching his cap like a lifeline. I watched the video, he said quietly. Which one? All of them, Jordan whispered. The arrest, the town hall, the speech. Ward waited. Jordan looked up. I thought, this job was about power. And now? Jordan's voice didn't shake. Now I know it's about truth, even when it hurts. Ward leaned back in his chair, studied him. You sure you're ready for this place? He asked. Jordan didn't hesitate. Not yet, but I want to be. Ward smiled, just barely. Then you're ahead of where most of us started. He slid a folded paper across the desk. Jordan opened it. A list of community centers, churches, schools. What's this? Ward said. Your first assignment. No patrol, no gun, no car, just conversations. Jordan blinked. Because if you don't understand who you serve, Ward added, you'll never know how to serve them. Jordan stood and saluted. Yes, sir. That night, Ward walked out of the station alone. The sidewalk lights hummed softly. Across the street, someone held up a phone, not recording, just shining the screen. Ward recognized the photo. It was a still from the day Carson was arrested. But it wasn't Carson they were showing. It was Ward standing still, not in anger, not in glory, but like a man holding up a mirror. Because in the end, he was never just a cop. He was a reflection of what this city could be if it dared to look.